Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for today's Quick Learn session on Word Advanced Topics for Research and Academic Papers. My name is Susie Johannes. I'm one of our two technology instructors who work for KUIT. With me I have Tennille Fincham. She's going to be helping us with the chat window, and if you have questions, we'll talk a little bit more about how you can see that chat window if you can't already. Hopefully people are making their way here and they're able to hear us. She's going to post some of the meeting join information for anyone who can't hear us at this point in that chat window. Just a little bit about the format of this. This is one of our series of Quick Learn sessions that we started last year. So these are basically webinars that we're hosting in Skype for Business, and we're trying to do these on one individual topic to do either like a deep dive or provide more tips and tricks based around something. Usually with these quick learns, we cover stuff that we don't necessarily have a full complete course built on yet, and that's the case with this Word course. So we actually don't offer any instructor-led courses for Word, so that's why we thought it would be helpful to do a session like this to really go into some more advanced topics surrounding papers. This is going to be a presentation. I'm not going to ask you to follow along as we go. I'm just going to be demoing some of the topics that we talk about. After the session, I'll send out a follow-up email, and I'll include a link to the session recording in case you want to refer back to that. I'll also include any answers to questions that I can't answer today. Like I mentioned, Tennille is going to be helping facilitate questions. We'll stop often, and so I'll ask you to pose your questions in the chat as we go or when we pause for questions. And if you didn't notice, we're recording today's session. Like I mentioned, we record all of our Quick Learn sessions so that we can post them online, and people who have to leave early or that couldn't make it can refer to them at a later time. Just a few things to talk about with our upcoming Quick Learn. You might have seen these in the recent announcements, but we're doing these almost every 2 weeks. So we have Excel 2013, 10 Advanced Functions and Operations. Tennille's doing that in a couple weeks. I think that's going to be our most popular one this fall. We're also going to do an overview of the different options you have for survey, polls, and forms, and some ideas to consider when choosing which tool to use. We're going to do some PowerPoint tips and tricks, and at the end of the year we're going to do Photoshop Basics for Web. So we don't currently have that as an instructor-led course, so we're going to do it as a webinar or record it for the people who need that information now. If you've never been in one of these Skype for Business meetings, a couple tips. One, I encourage you to maximize your window so that you can see the presentation as large as possible. Two, everyone should be muted at this point. If for any reason you would need to unmute yourself, there's a microphone with a slash through it. You can click on that to mute yourself. And then finally, I mentioned that I'm going to be asking you to submit questions through the chat. If you need to see that chat window, you can click on the little message icon in the lower left-hand corner. That will activate that panel for you so you can see the chat at all times. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to cover today. We're going to start off with basic page formatting and talk about margins and that type of thing. And then we're going to get into text formatting, where we're going to talk about changing overall document fonts and working with paragraph and character styles. Then leading off of that, we're going to talk about how to automatically insert a table of contents, and that's all going to play in with the character and paragraph styles that we're going to use. Next, we'll be talking about adding figures. So in this area, we'll talk about inserting pictures, charts, and graphs, and also how to caption those with the figure number. I'll also show you how you can automatically pull in a table to show the name of the figure and the page that each one shows up on. We'll talk about footnotes and endnotes. We'll talk about creating an index for your paper by defining your different terms that you want to be in the index and then inserting the index. We'll also talk about kind of taking a step back with Word, how you can collaborate on your Word documents using OneDrive for Business. So here at KU, every student, faculty, staff member has a terabyte of online storage in OneDrive for Business that you access by going through mycommunity.ku.edu. At least for the first time, it's helpful to access it that way. We'll talk about how you can get there, how you can upload documents, how you can share them, some things you might want to know. And then we'll talk about building off of collaboration, track changes, and things like that, and we'll do a wrap up. So I'd like to do something briefly before we move on. I just want to launch a few polls here to find out more about kind of what you're looking into. So first, I'd like you to, if you can, click on a radio option beside the option that best describes you. And I'll give you maybe a minute to do this, and then I'll close the poll and I'll show the results to everyone. Maybe not even a minute. So let's see. Looks like people are voting still. Let's give it a few more seconds. Oh, thanks for letting me know, Whitney. That the poll is not supported on the Mac. Okay, sorry about that. All right, I'm going to close the poll and show you the results. So it's kind of cool. We have, 8 graduate students and then and 4 staff. So it sounds like the graduate student announcement actually kind of resonated with some of you guys. So thank you for that. Let me do one more poll here just to see what your interests are. This one has a lot of interest. Unfortunately, you'll only be able to choose one, so you may need to scroll down to see all the options. So here, I'm asking, what feature are you most interested in so that I can make sure that I'm on target. Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. And we're a little bit spread out because there aren't a whole lot of people here. So we have, let me give you a couple more seconds. Okay. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to close this poll and show it to you. Cool, so this is going to be great. We are going to do formatting text, adding in table of contents, working. All this stuff will be great. Citations and bibliographies, that's a good thing to note now. So I'm going to go back to screen sharing and go back to my slides. As part of this class, I'm not going to cover instructions on the different writing styles. I'm not an expert on either. I'm also not going to talk really about citations and bibliographies because instead what I encourage you to do is to use both the KU Writing Center for that writing style guide information, and then the KU Libraries teaches a great class on a program called EndNote that actually integrates with Word. And so with EndNote, you can use it for all of your captions and then to create your bibliography. It's been a while since I took the class, so I can't remember exactly how to do it, but Pam Rooks teaches the class on EndNote. So instead of teaching you how to use Word, the built-in options, I'm going to instead encourage you to use EndNote and to look into that through the libraries. So let me get into my sample document here and just kind of show you where we're going to start. All right, so in this sample document here, I'm using Word 2013 on my PC. And so what I have here is just a basic outline for some paper. I just have a placeholder title, basically, placeholder header, just placeholder text here. I have some general different areas for the abstract, methods, results, that type of thing. I've already inserted some of this information, the charts, the pictures, but I'll talk about how to insert those and some tips and tricks. I believe this is generally following the APA format, but again, I'm not an expert on that, so the Writing Center is really a great resource when it comes to the specifics of the format. I want to start off just by talking about the general page format. And so a lot of those options you're going to find in Word under the Page Layout tab. So a lot of different publishers, different styles require you to have specific margins. You find that in this very left drop down. Here I have what Word calls the normal margins. They have different setups for different margins. But if I wanted to change the margins, perhaps I needed something extra. Maybe on the top it actually has to be 1.5 and the bottom 1.5. I could set up all those by clicking on that custom option. And then when I click OK, by default, it applies it to the whole document. So that's how you can generally change the margins to adhere to whatever parameters you have. Again, if you need to just go back to the normal margins, those normal options are here. Beforehand, I didn't set up I've already set up the header for this page. I'll just double click in there to make some notes with that. With the header, what I did to set this up was basically use one of Word's built-in options. And so to get into the header place, you can either double click in that header area, or if you come over here to the Insert tab, there's a header and footer region. And there you can just start off by choosing your theme or your layout that you want. So here I chose the 3 design columns, and in the place of this first column, I just did my short title placeholder. I deleted this second one, and then over here I just came to page number and chose current position and plain. So that just gave me the basics there for my title, my page number. Another good thing to note is when you're clicked inside the header, you see a contextual panel that's for the header and footer. When you want to get out of there, you can just say close header and footer, and that will take you out. Another thing to note, depending on what kind of paper you're doing or what your whole purpose is, you may not want the title and the header to show on the first page. There is an option here, different first page, that will just remove it from there, and then here I can continue on with what I want to have. All right, so that's some general page formatting options. I want to go now to talking about fonts. So when you launch a document, you say File, New. By default, it's the basic Office format. And in Office 2013, all the fonts are Calibri, and we have these basic styles here. Now, a lot of, you may have specific requirements about what font to use. Instead of coming through here and doing like a select all and changing the font that way, what I would suggest doing is coming to the Design tab. There you're able to, over here in the fonts area, you can choose from some preset font schemes. So if you know that it's all Times New Roman, there's a all Times New Roman font kind of collection. Or if it doesn't have what you want, you can come here and you can specify what you want. So here I'll just, do the same. I could just choose the other one. You can even give it a title or a name you go by. And so when you do that, what it does for you is just goes through and changes all of your default fonts so that you're using that already. And the cool thing about it is that then it sets you up to be able to use the styles that come with Word. So this wouldn't work if I had just done a Control-A and just changed the font. That would have just kind of been a surface change. But here, if I do it this way, everything changes to update to that Times New Roman font. There are other things there in the Design tab. I'm not going to go through them, but if you don't like the current styles and you want to experiment around, if you don't have that strict of formatting requirements, there are different things here. There's different themes you can choose from here. You can even change, if you like everything except for the color, you can just change the colors. So lots of different things you can do document-wide under the Design tab. I'm going to go now and talk more about these styles that we include that are included here. So with this design, I have all these different styles that are already set up to try to give me some hierarchy for when I'm creating headings and different types of things. The cool thing about these styles, there's two things. One, the styles, when you use them, they can really help you if you plan to do something like create a table of contents. and that's what we'll go after this, but if you use your styles, you'll be able to automatically generate a table of contents that's hyperlinked within your document. The other cool thing about styles happens when you want to make an update. If you use these styles and you decide all of a sudden that you don't like, let's say, a blue color for this font, you can simply update the style and it will update your entire document instead of having to go and find every use of that heading and use the format painter or something like that. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do something a little bit more plain than what we have with these styles, and we're going to do that by styling the text the way that we want to see it. And then we're going to come up here and we're just going to redefine these to match however we have it here in the document. So in this case, let's say, one more note to make about these styles. By default, all of your text is going to be styled with the normal style by default. So everything here is already normal. That's just how it works in Word. So here I'm going to just select this text here for my title. Let's just say all I need to do is to bold the title. So here I've just done that, made it look the way I want it to look. Now I can right click here and I could say update title to match selection. And with that, my title now looks like this. I'm only going to use a title in one place, so that one's not a huge deal. But here, let's say this is my next level down, so that would be my heading 1. And let's say I just want to bold that one as well. I can do that, and then here I can come to heading again, update to match it, and now it's just centered and it is bold. So as I go through my document, I'm going to skip that one because I don't want that one bolded, but I can just go through and apply this style to my different heading 1s. And again, this is going to help me when it comes to making my table of contents. Now, in one of these sections, I have some different headings below my headings. So here in the method section, I have some headings here. So maybe in this case, I'm just going to bold these. The only difference between this and the heading 2, or sorry, the heading 1, is that these are left aligned. So I'm going to follow this whole hierarchy, and because this was a heading 1, now I'm going to redefine this as my heading 2. So if I come here and I update heading 2 to match, now all of these I just need to remember to apply that heading, and that will make sure that those all fall in line. There's one more type of style I'm going to show you, and that's a little bit farther down in my document. I have some things here that are just different beginnings of sections. And up until now, all of these styles behind the scenes have been defined as something called a paragraph style. And so with the paragraph style, what it usually does is it will format everything to the first hard return. So everything within the paragraph will be formatted with that style. In the case of these headings down here, I don't want that to be the case. I just want one sentence to be bold at the beginning that's starting to define this little section. And that's called a character style. The great thing about this is that when I highlight this heading, and now I'm going to define this as my heading 3, it's just going to automatically recognize that that is my a character style and not a paragraph style. So I'll come here. I'll just format some of these beginning sentences that are supposed to be my headings for these different areas. Now, if you actually wanted to see that behind the scenes, you can kind of inspect these just by right-clicking and choosing Modify. Here, we can see the heading 1 is based on the normal paragraph, and that it is both a paragraph and character style. Here, if we go to a heading 3, actually we can't even see that's a character style, but it is, so that's how it's functioning. But the cool thing here is that all of this is linked to the normal style. So like I mentioned, the real benefit of using all these little buttons up here comes to when you want to make a change. So let's say in this in this normal, we need it actually to be 12 points and double spaced. Well, we can do a couple things. We could just highlight this, come here to 12 points. We might want to come here to the line spacing options and choose here, maybe double spaced. And maybe we want to not include paragraph space. So once we have that looking how we want it to look, we can come here, right click, and again, just say update normal style. That will just update everything. And the cool thing is because, and maybe I don't want this to be like this, because this all is based on that normal style, everything's just going to update at once, and I won't have to go around and double check that everything is correct. Okay. So we're going to move on to the table of contents, but I'll pause for a few questions. Before I do, I want to show you another benefit of using these styles is when you go to view, maybe some of you have seen this, it's called navigation pane. And what it does is it gives you an outline of your document and you can quickly jump to your different sections by clicking there. The way that it knows how to build this section is because we use those styles. So that's how it knows that there's abstract, method section, results, and then discussion. Okay, so I'd like to pause for a few questions. If anyone has any questions on styles, it looks like Tennille might be trying to help someone get the audio connected. Oh yeah, that's a great question. When you make those changes, it's just for that document, correct? Yes, that is correct. In this case, all the changes here I've made, it's just for this document. There are different things you can do. Let's see, I think in the design tab where, especially if you do some of these major changes, like say you want all Times New Roman and stuff like that, you can come here and you can choose set as default, and that will make all the settings the default for all future. Yeah, that's a great comment too. The heading 3s, they're not showing in the navigation pane, so it just does the heading 1 and the heading 2. I don't know if there's a way to customize that. Probably. Knowing Word, there's probably a way to get in there and customize the navigation pane. So great questions. The other thing too that's kind of similar to this navigation pane but actually shows up on the document is if we'd want to add in a table of contents. So here after my title page, I'm just going to click, before my title, I'm going to go to Insert and Page Break, just so I have a blank page right here. And I want to show you that table of contents. So here, when I'm on that page, because I've used those styles, I can come to the References tab and I can say Table of Contents, and I can just choose, maybe I'll start off with just one of the basic table of contents. So here it's pretty nice, and if I hover over these headings, it gives me my heading 1s, my heading 2s, and my heading 3s. And by default, these are all clickable hyperlinks. So I can, like it says here, do a control click if I want to just jump back down to that section. If I want something that's more specific than this, actually first let me show you this. If I want to add in a new section here, and this is maybe notes on the topic, let's say, and then I go in and I do, let's see, some different placeholder text there. And let me go ahead and style this now with my heading 1. So if I add in or I update different things, then I can just come to my table, say update. I'm going to choose update entire table, and now my table of contents is automatically just updated with all of my headings and the correct page numbers. And then if I want to do something a little bit different, let's see here, I can click in here. I'm going to go to the Review tab, or sorry, the References tab. I'm going to come here and remove my table of contents. But I can come here to Table of Contents. I don't have to choose one of these built-in automatic ones. I can come here to Custom Table of Contents, and I can choose some different options. So the first thing is just general formatting. I can choose that. There's one that's always from template, and then there's these other options. I can choose how many levels I want to show. So instead of heading 1, 2, and 3, I can just say heading 1 and 2. Or if I have specific styles that are set up that I want to show here, I can come to options and I can choose which of those styles I want to show in my table of contents. So here title isn't showing up. That's actually how I want it. So that's perfect for me. Say okay, okay, and there I have just a different kind of layout for my table of contents. Oh, can we format the title of like a container with a table in it as a heading one? Is that the question? So, figures in the table of content. That's a good question. Let me I'm going to circle around to that after we add in some figures and just take a look and see for sure. I think I know, but let me get back to that. So here, that's just our simple table of contents. You know, a lot of papers I don't think require a table of contents, but if you wanted to do something like that, that's how you can do it. I'll just leave it in there and leave it at that. Any questions on table of contents besides the one about figures? I'll get to that one. Maybe I should I'm going to remove this one and put back in that just general one. Okay. Oh, the title of the table of contents is blue. Yeah, so some of these automatic features, they automatically have a style associated with them. And so here, this one has a style specifically called table of contents heading. So here, if I want this to be different, probably the proper way to do it would be to come in here. You know, I could style it like I want, and update the heading, or I could come here to modify, and I could just say, you know, I want it black and I don't want it that large, and maybe I just want it bold, and that will do that for me. So especially when I get into this next section, which we're going to talk about figures, figures also has its own style. So learning these styles helps with a lot of other things down the road. All right, let's get into that. Let's talk about adding figures, adding pictures, adding graphs. So here, let's see, in this document, I want to show you just the most simple type of thing, which is inserting a picture. So I have an example in my document where I have a map. To insert this, I just placed my cursor in the general area where I wanted that picture to show up. I came here to insert and I chose pictures. And then what I did is I browsed my machine for the picture. So I'm going to select that. I'm going to choose insert. When you insert that picture and it's selected, you have some things that happen automatically. One, you automatically get this Pictures tool formatting pane. That only happens because we have this picture selected. The picture contains different positioning and options for wrapping text. Those same options are here in this quick little panel. So by default, it's going to place this picture, like it says, in line with the text. So it's going to consider it part of the sentence that I had added it with. Instead, I may want to choose just so that it wraps with the text, so that it starts, you know, I don't know, it starts maybe here, and you know, to some extent I can drag and drop it, and then the text wraps around it. Now, where this is being one big thing that's happening right here is by default this is moving with the text because of this default option here, and partially what I see is where it's anchored to is showing me a little anchor here. Now, for a lot of people, that will make sense because you're actually talking about the figure in the text that you have. For other people, it may not make sense to do it that way. And so Another option you have here is to fix the position on the page. And if you want to get into more specific options, you have this panel here. You could get to it other ways, but you can say see more. Here, when you're placing it in a specific position on the page, that's referred to as absolute positioning. And so a lot of times what you'll want to do is here in the absolute position, you'll say, you'll orient it to the page. So here, let's say we have 1-inch margins. We want this to appear at the top of the page. So we'll say 1 inch to the right of the page and 1 inch below the top of the page, basically. So with that, we can say OK. And now, whatever text we enter, whatever we do here, this is always just going to stay right here at the top of the page. So there are some different options there. Again, you can see all those too by going to more layout options. There's different wrap options. If you're curious, how to make sure there's some space there, you get to those all through those more options, extra text wrapping options, on options about the size. We see those options about the size here as well as the original size. We can also see some of those in this quick panel here to see different options. You have options to crop right within Word. So that's kind of just placing a picture. There's different, that's just the basics. Let's talk now about charts and graphs. And then we're going to get to labeling these as actual figures. So my next case here, I have a basic chart that I just made up in Excel. And so I want to show you two different things. One, to get your chart here, you can do it a few ways. One, you could find your chart in Excel. You can copy it and then just do a basic paste, generally where you want it to show. When you do that, it's going to make this chart almost fully editable, and in that, it's no longer going to be linked back to that Excel document. So in this Excel document where I copied and pasted it, I could change these and be drastically larger here. So this should be like, something like that. But when I come back here, wait a second. Well, I might have to double check on that because from what I had read and what I experimented with, it wasn't updating automatically, but here today it seems like it is. The other thing that can happen here is that you can format this right within the document. So here, with Excel, you see these same options. With Excel, you can filter down just within your chart. So here I just take out ands, I hit apply, now I'm just filtering just to these two. I can do different formatting here right within Word. I can even format my chart elements, like it says, remove things, add things, do different things there. Some of that ability to change that within the Word document may be not what you want. So in some articles I read, they've said, don't place the linkable charts to Excel because of the fact that you can change them within Word, and you kind of want to lock them down when it gets to your paper. There is an easy-ish way to do this if you're doing the same kind of workflow starting in Excel. And so with that, what you can do is you can, same thing like we did before, copy your chart. But when you come into Word, instead of just doing a simple paste, you can do paste and then use, there's a drop down here below paste. I can come here and I can choose paste picture. And let me try that again, paste picture. And so with that, I just have a couple here. And so with that, what I have is now this isn't editable at all. It is an exact, kind of capture of my picture from my Excel chart. And I can use those same kind of picture placement options to make sure this is exactly where I want it to appear. Maybe I'll move that down here. So options there. The other thing that you could do from Word, which I think probably is even less likely that um, people will use this option, is right from Word you can say insert chart and you can choose your chart type, and then basically you can copy and paste your chart, all of your data here, and it will map it out for you. But I don't know that a lot of people would do that right within Word. Those other paste options may be the most helpful. Let's talk now about creating those figures and then the table of figures. So here with all of my image elements, as I'm placing them, I may want to give them a caption and a figure name. Here, if I just select one of my pictures or one of my figures, I can come to the References tab, and there I have an area for captions. Captions, figures, they're going to be the same thing. So here I'm going to say Insert Caption. This is going to be figure 1. Maybe I'll give it a title. Here, the label is going to be figure. There's other options here, equation, table, figure is the one I'm using. You can make new labels, and I'm going to make mine show above. So with that, I'm going to say OK, and now I just have my figure name here. Now the cool thing about that is as I'm going, I can just do this and insert those. Chart. I'm just using real general things here. And it's going to insert that information. Kind of got some funky formatting stuff with that one, but here the cool thing is this automatic numbering is just going to take care of my numbering for me, so I don't have to sequentially look and see and then alter all the numbers if I add in a chart or a graph or a picture right in the middle of my document. So pretty nice. That works, like some of the other things in Word works where it just is automatically numbering and updating the numbers for me. The other cool thing here, building back on styles, is let's say I don't want my figure text to look like this. Well, if I select this, I come back here and I'm going to pop out the styles menu. I can see that that caption automatically created its own style. So here I can come in here, maybe I'll just say modify. Maybe I just don't want it to be italic. I want it to be larger. I want it to be black. There's also different things you can do in here for like formatting, tabs, different things. I'm just going to click OK. And now I have that same kind of that formatting, and it's going to carry over into all of my figure labeling. So then where all this comes into hand is if I want to create a table of figures. So if I just want my table to be separate from my table of contents, I can come in here, I can say reference, and right within that caption area, there's the option insert table of figures. So here, this is specifically called table of figures. I have a lot of those same options I had with table of contents, but it's just showing me there different formatting options. If I went into options, there'd be even more specific things I could set. If I just say OK, it's going to give me a really basic listing of my different figures and the pages, the names and the pages they exist on. So I was thinking that if you wanted your figures also listed in your table of contents, once you had at least added a few of those captions or those figure names, sorry, this is going a little bit off script here. I was thinking that you basically could come in here and say table of contents, custom table of contents, and basically you could choose to put in your table of figures. So I don't know, it looks like that worked. I guess all my figures were under discussion, so that makes sense. Some of the numbering seems a little bit off, so I don't know. That might not have worked. I should probably just go in and double check. Sorry. How to add a title for the list of figures? Great question. I believe that that was an option that I didn't have selected, so let's just double check I'm gonna just delete this. I'm just gonna delete this whole thing. Insert table of figures, caption labels, formats. I'll double check and make sure. I believe that it should just show that option to place that as the title. If not, I could type it in and give it, you know, the same kind of, I could type it in and give it the same kind of formatting as everything else, just at the top here. So there's probably a built-in way to do it. This would also work as well. And then you may just want to style it with one of your headings so that it appears in your navigation and in your table of contents. Any other questions about those figures that we covered? We kind of did that quickly. I just wanted to make sure to cover some of those placement options, the ability to add captions, that type of thing. Okay, so moving on, I want to talk a little bit about footnotes and endnotes. So within your document, a lot of these things that we're covering in this section when we talk about table of contents, table of figures, footnotes, endnotes, and then when we get to the index, a lot of these advanced options for papers are under references. So the first area here, insert footnote, insert endnote. Starting off with footnote, I won't go into the specifics of how to format this, but basically wherever you want your footnote to appear, you can place your cursor, say insert footnote. That's automatically going to create this footnote at the end of this area here, and I can start to type my citation or whatever I want to say here. You know, and so you can move throughout your document, inserting different footnotes as you go. I'm going to say, here's another one. Let's say I put one down here. The cool thing about this is that as I'm going, it's just automatically numbering for me. So let's say I want to add one in here. I just place my cursor again through references. I say insert footnote. It's just going to automatically adjust my numbering so that it's correct. And I have some weird formatting going on here because of some of the changes I made to the margins and things like that in the beginning. But normally this would be completely left aligned. One note to make is if you're using footnotes, it blocks out the option for endnotes. So, you know, to use endnotes, that means that you can't use footnotes. So let me I'm going to do a little Control Z there to take that out. Now, instead of footnotes, which appear on every page, if I want to instead include endnotes to appear at the end of the document, I can just say endnotes. They appear a little bit differently. They show different options here as far as the numbering, that type of thing. So the same option appears, but I just can't use them both simultaneously. So you can, as you're going, just add in different endnotes just like we saw before, and it's just going to allow you to renumber and type. If you want to get into any of the advanced options for a lot of these different things, if you ever see this small icon that looks like a little arrow with the corner popped out, that will always take you to the more advanced area of your document or of that panel so you can see all of the options. So again, something that helps with all of these things is using the libraries, you know, the tool that they teach on called EndNote. So that can help with all those different citations and things like that. Why is the EndNote in the next page? The EndNote on this case, this is my final page, so it's just placing it at the very end of my document. So it kind of looks like the next page maybe because I was on page 15 and it put it on page 16, But if I was, on any page here, it would just jump me to the end of the document. So again, I'm just renumbering and taking me back to the end of the document. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about indexing, and then we'll take another break for questions. So there's two different methods for providing an index in your document. One is to, as you're going through your document, marking the individual terms that you want to include in the document. I'm just going to jump up here to the abstract. And then the second step is always to insert the index. So that's method one, mark as you go, insert the index. Method two is to have a separate document that you, as you're going, you capture all the terms that you want to be in your document. And then what you can do is you can have Word automatically mark those terms for you. And then the last step is still to insert the index. So I'm going to show you both of those options and show you what how that works. So the first option works especially well if your whole paper is in one document. So if everything is here in this one Word file, this method works well. I can come here to, as I'm going, I find the first word I want to be in my index at the end of my document, or I can place the index anywhere, but I'll come here, I'll say mark entry. This is going to bring open this mark entry index box, which I'll keep open during the whole time I'm marking my entries. So here I have the word video. I'm just going to use the default options here in this window. And I'm just going to say mark all. When I do that, it starts to bring up these hidden characters, which will also appear during the entire time that you're marking your index. But here, I'm just going to, as I go, just take some of these words. So I'll just highlight a word, come over here to the mark index entry box and say mark all. And I can just work through my document, choosing different words and choosing to mark them. Let's do smart art as well. There are some other things you can do built in here. I'm just familiar with the most basic, but let's say online video. When I come over here, instead of marking all online video, I actually want to cross-reference it and just point people to video. I can do that from here. So I would say see, and I would just type in video, and then we'll actually see that happen when we insert our index next. So I'll say mark there, and then when I'm done, I just click close. So after I've gone through and used that to mark all of my different words, I'm just going to jump down here to the end of my document and place it somewhere here. Once I have done all of that, the second step is always just to insert the index. So again, this kind of looks like some of those other things we had seen. There's different templates, different kinds of formatting. So I'm just going to leave it as the default so you can see that and click OK. And with that, let's see, if I want to turn off this hidden paragraph stuff, I can get to that on the Home tab. There's this tiny little show hide paragraph formatting. So I'll just deselect that. And so this is what my index would look like using the default options. Now this index, like I said, this works well because I have this all in one document. So as I'm selecting words, I'm just saying mark all, and it's going through my document and marking those. If you have a really massive paper, it could be that you have the sections split out into different Word documents. In that case, the other method, using a separate document to capture the terms that you want to put in the index, may be more helpful. So in that case, I'm going to just minimize this. I have a different document here. So this is my document I started that has just some basic terms separated by paragraph returns. And then I have a document here that's just same kind of thing, only I haven't added in anything. I added in the table of figures here, but that's it. So in this case, if I have a separate document with my terms, in the second method, what I can do is, again, I come to references. Here I'm going to say insert table of figures, oh sorry, wrong one, sorry. Index, insert index, and here I'm going to choose the Automark option. When I do that, I get to browse my computer for that other file that has my terms. I'll click open. And so what just happened is it went through my document and it just marked all those terms. So instead of marking as I go, I have that other document, then I use that auto mark option. I still have to come here, insert the index in order to get the index to appear in the paper. Is it possible to link the index words to locations and documents similar to table of contents? That's a good question. I may have to double check on that. I don't know for sure, but there's probably an option some here where I either inserted the index or I did something else. So I'll double check and find out. Thank you for these questions. They're really good. And I'm sorry I don't have the answers. So I'll make sure to follow up on that once I get the answer. Okay. So we talked about indexing, we talked about footnotes and endnotes. More questions on those two options? Oh, I'm going to do this. Okay. All right, well, let's move on to collaborating on this document, and I want to talk a little bit about your OneDrive for Business storage space. So I'll just launch this. Okay, so KU students, faculty, and staff now have a terabyte of personal online storage through OneDrive for Business. This allows you to store and collaborate on files, and if they're Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote files, you can co-author those so multiple people can be in the same file at the same time. When you store files under your OneDrive for Business, you can share them with people internal and external to KU. There are some limitations, and I think I need to update this slide. At one time, there was a 20,000 item limit. It's gotten a lot larger than that. There are some limits per size of file. There are some different character limits that PC users should be familiar with, but Mac users, it may ask you to rename your document when you try to upload if you have some of these characters in your file name. And then there are some invalid file types that it won't allow you to store there. When you access it the first time, I encourage people to actually use a browser and go to log in to mycommunity.ku.edu with your online ID and password. So every student, faculty, and staff, when you start, you get access. So usually you'll go to that URL by directly typing it in. There is a quick link on the portal page to My Community, but you can go to mycommunity.ku.edu, sign in with your KU online ID and password. In the upper left-hand corner, there's this little icon that looks like a waffle. That's called the App Launcher. You can select that, and then you can click on OneDrive to get to your personal OneDrive for Business storage space. I want to talk a little bit about losing access. So this is all great while you are here at the university. And then for about 7 months after you're no longer active in our Enroll and Pay or HR Pay system, you'll still have access when you leave. So at that point, 7 months after you graduate, you'll want to, up to 7 months after you graduate, you'll want to download the files that you have or move them to another storage location. We'll talk about the best way to do that or the easiest way to do that. So let me jump now to OneDrive and show you. So here I am, I've logged into My Community. I click on the App Launcher, and when I go to OneDrive, I'm going to see all of the folders that I've set up in my OneDrive for Business storage space. So right here, mine's going to look different than yours because I've started to use it, so I have a bunch of folders set up. If I want to put a file here to share with a colleague, either here at KU or elsewhere, I can do that a couple ways. One, if I haven't even created the file yet, I could start here right from the browser, say new. You know, in this case we're talking about Word, so I could choose Word document. There's other different types of things you can do here. So I could do it that way. Or I could come here to upload and I could choose, you know, one of those options that I had done and say open. That would just show me in the corner uploading items to files, and it would appear in my list. The other thing I can do here is if I have my files, you know, here in my file browser, in most browsers you can take, you know, your file, some different, but I can just drag and drop it into the window here, and that will copy it over. And I think I'm moving a little too fast for my computer. But eventually that will upload. I'll see the upload in progress here, and then it will show up in my list. So uploading items, it shows uploading items to files, and then I see it appear here. The other option you have is the ability to sync. So if you're already using Google Docs or Dropbox, you're probably already familiar with this option, but the sync option allows you to open your files that are stored within OneDrive from the file browser on your computer. So here I've already synced. I can see it as OneDrive, the University of Kansas. I see everything that I have here, including those 2 files that I just added. So when you use the sync option, you can just, you know, drag your files into OneDrive here. You could save them to OneDrive. Instead of even saving them on your desktop, you can just save them all in OneDrive. And you can move around things this way. If you need to move around things here, you can to some extent drag and drop. So here, if I want to move that into the training folder, I can do that. There's also options when you check this little box. It's kind of invisible by the file name. You have options here: move to, copy to, rename, that type of thing. So when we're talking about collaboration, I'm going to get into this document and kind of make some edits and stuff like that. I do want to point out that versioning is just automatically happening. It's automatically turned on by default. So we had a question, these files are not accessible by others at KU, right? That's a great question. The default is that any file you put here, only you will see them. Not even your local tech support staff can log in to see them. Now, the only thing that could ever happen would be is if your password got compromised in some way. If someone could actually log in as you, then they'd be able to access your files. But if you simply drag and drop, upload files, things like that, only you will be able to see them unless you specifically try to share them with someone else. And we'll get to that here in a second. So I'm going to act like I'm going to go in here just to edit this file. I'm going to click here on the name. I just want to show you a few things and then we'll wrap up. But here I'm seeing a preview mode. When a file is stored here in OneDrive, I can choose to either edit in the browser or I can edit in the full desktop version of Word. This requires you to have Office 2013 or newer. So right now it's opening it in Word. The important thing about this is that this is a great way to do it, where you store the file online and then you open it in the desktop version of Word. This is the only way that you can actually get to and turn on track changes if you would want to share. If you're not planning on sharing, maybe track changes isn't a big deal, but the only way that you can turn on or view track changes is all by opening in Word. So this is taking a little bit of time, and I'm running out of time as well. So I'll just close this. But here you always have the option to also edit in browser. You can get the basic version of Word, and then here, if I'm kind of not keeping up with my own computer, but I could always come here also and say edit in Word to edit this file that's stored online in the main desktop version of Word. Now, if I'm editing in this online version of Word, I don't have to save, just like Google Docs. When I add different information here, it's just saving as I go. You can see that in the upper bar. When I'm done, I can just back out of that document. I just want to say 2 more things before I wrap up. Here, if I want to share this document, I can do it in a couple ways. One way, I can click here. I see the share option or get a link. Whenever you share a document in Word, whenever you share a document that's stored in My Community, if you require sign in and the person isn't already logged in to My Community, it's going to take them to this Office 365 page where they need to know to type in KU Online ID followed by @home.ku.edu. Once they do that, they'll advance to the KU login page where they can log in as normal. So I'll include this slide in the follow-up, but usually I include a message in my invitation to view that document with those instructions so that they don't get lost. All right, so we talked a lot about a lot of different things. I will have this recording available if you want to review it. I have some messages to follow up on. So I'm going to follow up on those. I'll include these slides. I'll include a link to the recording, and you should get that sometime within this week. If you do have advanced questions when it comes to Word, you're welcome to contact us. Our email is right here, training@ku.edu. We can set up a one-on-one appointment with you or just send you the steps to do that. So like I mentioned, we do have some upcoming quick learns. I do want to thank everyone for your time. If you do have additional questions, I'll stick around for a few more minutes to answer questions. But other than that, just take a look, keep an eye out for that follow-up message. All right, thank you.